Hi, I'm Dr. David Perl from limerence.net, the Quit Limerence Doctor. And today I'm delighted to have another member of the Limerence Forum, Sunshine USA, on the end of the phone, well, on the end of Zoom, but again, because of the sensitive nature of limerence, Sunshine USA has chosen to just talk to us on, which is great and understandable. So, welcome, Sunshine USA. And do you want to start by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you for having me to talk to others and maybe share my experiences. Um, I am a married mother of 4 children. Um, as the name indicates, I live in the United States, and I experienced limerence for the first time, where I recognized maybe I had some sort of a problem. I would say 2016, 2017. I started acting out in limerence, I would say 2016. And then in 2017, I disclosed my limerence. And then the all of the emotions and things that came afterward caused me to, of course, go to Google and see what's wrong with me.
And how long did it take you to come across the word limerence to sort of put the pieces together?
I would say I did some searching around for, off and on for maybe a week or so. And then I came across a blog where a young lady shared her experience and put a name, limerence, to the feelings she was having. And I was at work, and I recall just breaking into tears and just uh, sneaking off to the bathroom and crying. A lot of emotions, just thinking, wow, there's someone else, there's other people out here that experience this extreme feeling of crush. Doesn't really give it the right word.
Yeah, I think that was that article by, she was quite young when she wrote it, about 17 or 18 years old. Is that the
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, her name's Brittany, and I'm going to be doing an interview with her next week. She's now, I think, 27. She was 16 or 17 at the time, and it was a really insightful and mature article. I couldn't believe that somebody so young had written that. And yeah, I remember reading
Wow.
that.
That's amazing. I'm happy that you still have contact with her, because I feel like it was, like you say, she was very young, and it was a long time ago where when I actually found the blog, it had been, like you say, 7 or 8, maybe 10 years. And I thought, wow, this has been around all of this time. And yeah, I'm glad that you have contact with her, because it was extremely insightful. I couldn't believe how young she was.
Yeah, yeah. So had you had crushes before or anything like this?
I had crushes before that were that were somewhat extreme. But I think I had just seen them as normal, and I thought that a lot of people felt the way I did when I would fall for someone. But it wasn't until the most recent one where it took on a whole new life. I don't know if it's a combination of I'm an adult now, and we have the internet where you can easily look and see, what your limerent object is doing, where they're going, what they think, all of these things. So I think that the modern era and being an adult that can make my own decisions without my parents kind of overarching authority. I think those two things added something to what used to just be a crush for me when I was younger.
Right. And what would you say were the sort of main symptoms that you had this time around?
This time around, I had an extreme desire to disclose. I felt like all of my feelings were reciprocated. without even really thinking all the way through. So I assumed initially that everything I felt, he was feeling just the same, and that I was part of something new and exciting, and something that made me feel on such a manic, exhilarated, happy level at all times when I felt like I had reciprocation. That is.
Right. And I've just made a video today, just literally been editing it just before coming on this call, about disclosure and the desire to disclose. Can you say a bit more about that? I mean, what was that like? And
Yes. At the time, I felt really empowered. I felt really like excited. I'm going to be completely honest with this person, and I'm going to tell them every single thing that's on my heart, in my mind, and I expected on some level that it would come full circle, that I would receive the same. And I don't know why I had this expectation, but I think this particular person just I felt like there was always something there. I thought that I was just going to be the one that was bold, and he was going to reciprocate. And I mean, I was just bursting to facilitate consummation, to facilitate a relationship, to facilitate, of course, what I thought was something wonderful, exciting. He can't wait to be a part of it, I'm sure.
and what so you disclosed, how did you disclose?
I disclosed in person. I was sitting in a car, kind of like I am now, but I told him first through electronic, social media messages, that I wanted to be with him. I wanted to have a relationship with him, that I cared about him, and that I've always had a crush on him. And then in person, I reiterated it. And he told me in person, after a lot of back and forth over the phone and so forth, I expected reciprocation, but he told me in person that while, it sounds great, and he used to have a huge crush on me, but at this time, in his life, that he can't have that type of a connection with me, and that we could never be.
So it sounds like you'd known your limerent object for a while before you got limerence, or you've known him for a while.
Yes, I've known him for over 20 years. Although, there had been some I don't know. I guess we had kind of been making eyes at each other. Nothing had ever crossed the line previously, but I would venture to say that we both kind of had a little crush, maybe a spark, but had never crossed any lines or boundaries previously. And then yes, I think both of us were at a kind of a time in both of our lives, perhaps, I'm assuming with him, but I can speak for myself that I think I was at a point where I just, anything unsaid, I wanted it to be said. I had this real strong desire to be completely authentic and open with anyone and everyone, not just him, but it was part of the limerick process for me, was disclosing to him and being completely open and honest for the first time.
So sort of radical honesty.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I'd read a book called Radical Honesty by a psychotherapist called Brad Blanton at the same time of my limerence, and I
Oh
think
no.
it precipitated a similar sort of desire. But for you, I mean, this desire to be honest, was it playing out in other parts of your life or just with this limerence?
It was definitely playing out in other parts of my life. My marriage had gone through a really difficult previous 5 or 6 years, um, almost ending prior to this. And so there was definitely a process of rebuilding going on in my marriage that had been almost irretrievably broken. But I was giving kind of another shot at it, trying hard to repair my marriage. And part of that was being more honest about how I felt about things, not holding so much in. I tend to either hold in things and just take things for the way they are, whether I'm happy or sad about them, or I explode. There's very little, or there was very little in between, as far as just talking things out, communicating my feelings, regardless of if I felt that I was going to receive backlash or arguments. Or I was trying to get better and better about being honest with how I felt, and breaking some codependent patterns in my marriage. And so, yes, I think to answer your question, I think there was definitely a desire to be open and honest in many areas, just as an adult, just as a woman.
Yeah, so sort of moving away from that, I see so often the conflict avoidance.
Yes, absolutely. I definitely avoid conflict, and so yeah, that's been a part of growth for me, is trying to see conversations and communications as not necessarily conflict, but just learning how to communicate and being an adult, a full functioning adult is the goal.
Yeah, yeah, there's the same journey for many of us. So what's interesting is that you knew your limerent object for 20 years, but I'm making an assumption here, but that you've never had this intensity of feelings for them before.
That is true. I have not had this intense of feelings, although I do notice patterns when I would start new relationships, how I would be completely taken over by the relationship, and I would always go into an automatic mode where I was completely focused on making this person happy and being, I guess, just totally externally focused just on that person, making them the center of my universe. And that is how I believe I've started any of my romantic relationships, in kind of that type of a frame of mind.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, one of the traits or qualities that we grapple with limerence is being very obsessive about the whole situation. Is that something that you can tell us more about in not just with this limerence, but in your own, just in day-to-day life? I mean, did you have traits of being obsessive?
Yes. Well, I think one connection I was able to make was that I was definitely obsessively limiting my food and nutrition during my teenage years. So it could be said, my parents would say that I struggled with eating disorders as a teenager. And so that was definitely an obsessive, something that I can really relate both experiences to. How much, how good can I be? How perfect can I be at, whether it's not eating any bad things, or for limerence, how perfect of a person can I be for this person, so that they will reciprocate all of the feelings that I have. And it's the same ruminating. What will I do next? How can I do this better? So whether it's looking online, or, as a teenager, this was the 90s. So what books can I check out at the library? What friends can I make that can share their tips with me? In the year 2017, 2018, though, it was, of course, where can I go online to find more information about who this person is, how they feel, who they've had relationships with. Can I detect any feelings from any of their social media posts? Can I relate to them? Can I rescue them from them? So it's constant ruminating, obsessing over, how can I feed this monster inside of me?
Right. And so that was back in 2016 when all this kicked off. So can you tell us a bit about your trajectory through limerence, how it evolved, and what happened over sort of the years since then?
Sure. I would say that early on, the desire was to constantly connect. So send messages, post social media posts that I was hoping he would see or react to, watching his social media to see if he would post anything that I could feel like I could react or comment on. It started as a constant need for connection. But as I started to move through it and realize that I was somewhat delusional, quite frankly, as I started to grapple with that and how, um, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? As I moved through the reality of the situation, which was I was reaching out, I was seeing more here than what was true, and I was on kind of the same playing field as a stalker or as a person that doesn't know where boundaries are, that doesn't understand what when people are giving them body language or unsaid things that maybe I didn't detect or maybe others don't detect. I'm kind of in that same ballpark. And
Yeah.
so once I started to accept that reciprocation isn't just a quick comment or a smiley face. Reciprocation is so much more. And once I realized how much I was really selling myself short and how low my self-esteem or self-worth must be to continue to engage, I started making conscious efforts to disconnect and to not see connection as a win, but seeing it as something that's going to continue to hold me back, that's going to continue to drag me down, and it's going to continue to cycle me through different obsessions for however long I allow it to continue. And so that was I had to move into a place of simultaneously not connecting with him and also forgiving myself for wanting to connect.
And how difficult was it to come to that realization?
It was many months and many years of sometimes I win and sometimes I lose. Sometimes um, there were times where I had, my goal was do not connect at all, and then there were other times where I'd say, well, I've known this person for all this time. This isn't strange or weird or stalkerish to make this comment or to say this thing or to look this person up or any of these things. So there's many times where you go back and forth and you justify any behaviors in a hope to get that hit, to get that feeling of seeing this person, of a new fantasy, of a new thought process. But it's very hard and it takes a very long time. And like I said, some days I did good and felt such strong. Other days I did good and felt weak. And so the up and down of actions and emotions were all over the place, quite a bit.
Yeah, right. And you touched on about misreading social cues with your limerent object. I mean, is that something that is something that you've noticed that happens in other relationships as well, or was it just more around this limerence that was happening?
I think it was more around the limerence. I think that I've always kind of seen myself as able to socially interact and read cues and body language. I thought I was good at that, but as time went on, limerence did create some self doubt and wondering maybe I don't necessarily know how I come across, or it made me think back to other relationships, friendships, where I had a friend one time where we just kind of grew apart. We didn't talk anymore, and I wondered, I wonder if there were things that I just didn't notice, or if I was not a good friend and this person just couldn't tell me, or if there's a way that I come across that rubs people the wrong way. It made me question, maybe I was delusional when it came to relating to others. Maybe I thought I was good at it. Maybe I'm really not.
Yeah, it's I've been going through the same sort of thoughts and feelings as well when I reflect back on my own limerence, identical to what you just said.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So, um, and where are things now? Sort of what, 5 years on from when all this started? How?
Yeah. I would say now things are definitely much better. That's not to say that he doesn't still cross my mind. That's not to say that I don't on occasion go to his social media and just, maybe look at a new picture, or look at where I would assume he's at with his life right now, what he's doing. That's not to say that those thoughts don't still come across, but I see this person as someone who's potentially dangerous to my life, to my future, to his life and to his future. And so while it sometimes feels sad, I think it also was something that I needed to see um, in myself and for myself in order to um, there's something great about radical honesty, but there's also there has to be a balance to it. There has to be honesty, as well as everything doesn't need to be said. Every crush doesn't need to be consummated. Every feeling we get inside that we want to chase doesn't need to be chased. And so it seems kind of obvious, but I think now I'm at a place where I can see it for what it is, which is something that could spiral terribly out of control. And I'm relieved that lines weren't crossed, that can't be repaired, only within me. Obviously, I have some repair work to do from within myself, but I don't have to make repairs to everyone else in my life as well, which could have happened had things gone further, or had things gone the way I wanted them to go.
Yeah, so it sounds like from what you were saying before that you were trying to pursue a sort of a full-blown affair if the opportunity had arisen.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something that I think many of us can relate to. And the radical honesty thing, yeah, absolutely. The word that my own therapist, I mean, when she heard that I disclosed to my own limerent object, she was so pissed off with me. And I know therapists are not meant to be judgmental, but mine would speak her, she would speak her truth at times. And the word she used, and it's always stuck with me, is discernment. Is that, yeah, honesty is great, but we have to use discernment at times, as to when to be honest. And another phrase I've heard is honesty without compassion is brutality. And
Oh
so,
yes, I like
yeah,
that. I like that.
yeah, and so we have to be mindful about, whose need is it serving in our disclosure, because we really don't know or understand fully the world of our limerent objects, and they're human beings and they have their own stuff that they have to deal with, and I think we're just, as you said, we become stalkerish and oblivious to that.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And there's so much about my limerent object that I was just projecting and assuming and feeling, just kind of an undercurrent of vibes that were coming from me and only me.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're sort of, you've been through 5 years of this, if somebody is listening to this video and has just stumbled like you stumbled across the term limerence all those years ago and had that real profound moment of sort of thinking, crikey, this, I'm not the only person in the world who's suffering with this madness, what would you say to them?
I would say that it's a long process. I would say that it's not related to your limerent object. You can easily get caught up in feelings of, well, this person made me see all of these things. This person made me feel all of these feelings. This person, it must be an amazing cosmic connection for all of this to happen, for me to feel the way I feel. And I'm here to tell you that all of those strong feelings are within you, whether that limerent object is there or not. So you are doing yourself a disservice every time you um, project those feelings onto your limerent object, and you're not being fair to them either. You have to really be able to solve this by looking at your own behaviors, your own processes, your own methods of manipulating. It's all within you, and once you can start to heal wounds that have been imprinted there from your childhood, from your youth, once you can start to see them and heal them, and take responsibility, you can move on. Now, that's not to say that you cannot become limerent again, because you absolutely can. As with any addictive behavior or obsessive behavior, there's another opportunity right around the corner to fall right back down into it. But I would say, with awareness of who you've become and what you've learned, you can be happy. You can feel peace within yourself without needing to look outside at someone else to make you feel loved or feel fulfilled or feel adequate.
Yeah, that's so important to feel good enough, I think, because so many of us with limerence at our core don't feel good enough, and we're seeking that validation from the limerent object.
Yes, I would totally agree. I think that is something that men and women, limerent sufferers, have in common, is that we just want to be good enough. We just want to prove that we can get the love and affirmation from this particular person. Now, why they matter so much varies probably from person to person, but we definitely want them to approve of us, to admire us. And so digging deeper into why those things matter, and why we feel inadequate is key to a lot of this.
Yeah, and so that's another point I want to pick up on. Quite often when people first stumble across the forum, or when I first see clients and we start looking at childhood, quite often there's a lot of almost like denial. I think it's an ego defense to that their childhood was fine, there were no issues, and yet with time and some unpacking, they start to realize actually this need to be perfect does come often, well, always comes from childhood. I mean, is that something that you can share a bit more about your own childhood? I mean, you mentioned about eating and the need to be perfect, trying to get perfection through what you ate. I mean, can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, I think I've always, had the kind of a need to feel perfect. In many ways, I think a lot of my childhood was I was my parents' first daughter. And so very early on, I learned that I, had a certain role within our family dynamic, as well as a preparation for a future family dynamic. And so I learned early on that I needed to be a lady, I needed to be pretty, I needed to be soft-spoken, and I needed to be a servant and give to others. And that was the ultimate goal to a happy life, is becoming becoming a wife and a mother to my future family. And so that was my highest calling, was to mother children. And so I was raised in a pretty evangelical Christian home, to where even as I moved through adolescence, and I think I always felt like I was needing to prove to someone that I could be that for them. And so, unfortunately, it led me into relationships that weren't good for me. I think I was initially started off very anxiously attached to my early romantic partners. And then I realized that wasn't looked very well upon. People didn't want an anxiously attached spouse. So I thought, well, I can do better. I can be more perfect. I can be a little more avoidant. And then they'll come and they'll chase me. And so this was all a manipulative tactic to become perfect, to be what I thought people wanted of me. Even when early on with limerence, when I realized that this was possibly, related to attachment patterns, I would take these quizzes and it would say I was anxiously attached, and I would be angry. No, I'm not. I'm not anxious. I'm not anxiously attached. I don't need a man. I don't need anybody to fulfill me. And in reality, I was trying to be avoidant, but I was still quite anxiously attached.
Yeah, or an anxious avoidant, which is the worst of both worlds. Which some people,
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I was trying to be avoidant as an anxious person, which turned out making me quite a bit of both, which is otherwise known as a hot mess.
And so I can see, just listening to you, that you've got a lot of insights into your own behavior and the human psyche. What was limerence the gateway to that journey, or was it something that you were interested in before?
I would say in my teenage years, I did read a lot on several topics, but I've always been somewhat interested in the human psyche because really in an effort to understand my own behaviors. And so it started with eating disorders and trying to get smarter in that regard. But I would say limerence was the first thing that actually forced me to look at myself. So yes, I would say limerence was the catalyst. It was the flashlight shining brightly, saying that I was carrying around a lot that I needed to work through, and I couldn't distract it anymore with all sorts of various things that we use to distract ourselves. I really had to look deeper and solve it, because otherwise I was going to be in a constant state of stress, worry, anxiety, um, wanting someone who I would never have, moving from this one to that one, always rejected. These feelings of constant anxiety. Whereas if you look at me and you're actually in my life, you don't know any of that is going on. I really had to figure out a way to make the outside sunshine match the inside. And that was my goal, and that's what limerence forced me back against the wall. That was where I was when I realized this isn't about limerence. This is about me and lots of needs for change. Limerence, eating disorders, perfectionism, that was all just a distraction and a disguise for needing to soothe some old hurts.
Yeah, to fill up that hole in our soul.
Yes.
Yeah. And to sort of bring it up to sort of full circle, where are you now as far as relationship, family? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes. I am still married, which I'm happy to be still in my marriage, and things are going well there. I'm at a much better place than I was early on. And like I said, that doesn't mean I don't think about the limerent object, and that doesn't mean that I'm not actively avoiding the limerent object. And that doesn't mean I don't think about what I went through. That still happens. It's still a process. Sometimes thinking about the limerent object, it's like an automatic thing. It was such a habit. So I have to gently and carefully redirect my thoughts and be grateful for how far I've come. So gratefulness and being able to change, for the ability to change. I have family members who will never change. They're always the same person they've always been, and so that's another thing I can focus on and be grateful for, is I can change. I can learn things. I can adjust. I don't have to put this person in the center of my heart, in the center of my world. I'm more than that. And so, sometimes there's a lot of positive self-talk that happens, but it's more positive than it is negative. And I can't say that it was that way 5 years ago, but it wasn't without a lot of hard work, a lot of reading, a lot of learning. The limerence.net forum has really been a lifesaver for me. Even if I'm not posting, sometimes I'm just reading. It's really been a safety net. Sometimes knowing that other people feel the way you feel is just what you need for that day to go on to the next day. I can be strong. I can be, tough. I can move through this. I can heal. So
Yeah, that's great. So we've been going just under an hour, and so we'll sort of start wrapping up. But anything else that you want to add to what you've said already? And anything that you haven't covered or you feel you want to say?
Well, I guess all I've got left would be I just want to thank you for providing the forum, providing a place where people can get an understanding of this. I think we figured out that it doesn't really fit into a perfect box. This is what this is. I think we've been able to kind of determine through a lot of self-reflection what it is, and so I'm glad there's a name for it, and I'm glad that name is the name of your website so more people can understand it. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. Well, it's fantastic. I really appreciate your candor, your honesty. I know it helps other people because they tell me, just hearing other people's stories. And, my mission is to try and build up a catalogue of just individual stories and accounts. But there's so many consistent themes with all these stories that you touch on. But it does help, and I really wish you well, Sunshine USA, wherever you are in the USA, on your own journey. And in the men's work that I do, we have a saying, and that is the journey continues, and it continues for all
Yes.
of us. It never ends. And and I'm really pleased though to hear that things with your family and your sort of getting back on track, and you're working through that, because I absolutely agree with you that consummating our limerence is it's never the answer. I've yet to meet somebody who's had an affair. Affairs often start with limerence, and they've consummated it. It never ends well. People get hurt. However much we believe that we can leave a long-term relationship without causing some form of fallout, it just doesn't happen. So and this is why I
Yeah.
want other people to listen to your story and hear that that wouldn't have been a good outcome had you consummated the relationship.
Yeah, I agree. I'm relieved.
Yeah. But it is. I think it is it's probably the hard. Well, I don't know. I don't know what the harder course of action is, but certainly resisting the temptation and holding into those urges is damn hard, and especially if there is reciprocation from the limerent object, then it becomes even harder. And I think that's one of the
Yeah.
reasons why not to disclose, because then the limerent object can then use us for their own narcissistic supply, or manipulate us to get their own ego strokes and validation. It's all the same thing at the end of the day. So
Yes, and I think that's common for a limerent object. They don't necessarily know how to react to someone disclosing. People, no one wants to hurt anyone's feelings. No one wants to tell someone who's in love with them that no, I can't do this. And so yeah, I think it's easy to now get used for someone else's ego strokes. I would have said back then, well, I don't mind if he's using me for an ego stroke. Matter of fact, I want him to use me for something. I just want to be a part of his world somehow. But
yeah,
now that was part of the delusional thinking, that the stop go confusing feelings are all part of this, and so that's what makes it hard. That's what makes it hard.
yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, we'll end there. But thanks again, and go well on your journey.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Also, it was very nice talking with you.
My pleasure, and hope we talk again at some point. You take care.
Okay, you too.
Bye.
Bye bye.
So there we have it. There's Sunshine USA's story, and I hope you got some use from that.